decided to come do this, and they are dog lovers. At least my ex-husband is, his youngest daughter is, and my daughter is. But I guess his wife isn't so much a dog lover. And who does the dog go for?
The one who doesn't love her. Yeah.
So she opens the door, and Artemis goes barreling out towards my ex-husband's wife. And she's like, oh my God. And we're like, just give her love. Just give her love and she will stop. She's not attacking you. She wants love.
No, it's a dog. I'm scared.
Don't freak out. Seriously. Oh, look
hey,
at
everybody.
that. We got lots of people visiting us today.
Hi, commenters. It's nice to see you guys. Some of you I've never heard of before this. Goandi now. Yeah, that one. I'm not sure what that means.
All right. Can you read that for us, Jay?
Oh, make sure you all smash that like button. Oh, I forgot to put the emphasis on like too, but I think you guys get the idea. Smash that like button.
If you were watching Joe's bar last night, you'll understand.
I didn't watch Joe's bars last night. Did we learn about the like button? I know. I was busy with the embroidery machine.
Joe's not gonna like that.
You were
Joe's
working.
not gonna like that.
Sorry, Joe. Sorry, Papa. Well, welcome back. This is Spilling Ink, or Splink, as some people like to call us. And we still don't have Jane. Jane's got all sorts of stuff going on, though. So Katie and I are going to do our best and to carry the show. I know. Look at that. We're matchy tonight.
Twinsies.
Feeling good. It kind of feels like I'm showing
You
off.
can tell who's the host.
Wrong show, though.
But we're back, and big exciting news for the show. I got an embroidery machine. Wait, how did you guys know about that? How did you know, Regine? Well, anyhow, we got an embroidery machine, so my wife and I are gonna start making some fun little stuff for an Etsy shop, and I'm sure I'll update you guys on that once we get things going. But it's gonna be a good time. We have to build a little embroidery and sewing room now because our kitchen table can't fit everything anymore. Yeah, I think she just wants me out of the kitchen, which I don't blame her for. But this is Spilling Ink. This is like writing and publishing show. I'm not sure why I'm here, how I got here, even. But I'm here, and you're stuck with me. And then so now I'm going to turn it over to Katie, who actually knows what she's talking about.
All right. Well, as always, before we get started, we have to pay homage to our sponsor, Mr. Joe Compton from Go Indie Now.
Hello, everybody. I am Joe Compton, and welcome to our channel, Go Indie Now. This is the place that celebrates indie artists and indie art, and we do so by producing several shows that either air on daily, weekly, monthly, or seasonal scheduling. And within those shows, we aim to educate and entertain you. If you're an indie artist who's trying to figure out how to do this, this is the place you need to be. If you're an indie artist who's looking to promote and doesn't have any avenues and is tired of the grind, this is the place to be. Because remember, it's always time to go indie now.
That's right. Always time to go indie now. And that right there was the show we were talking about that you missed, Joe's Bar on Go Indie Now.
What?
So shame
what
that you missed it.
What happened?
You have to go back and watch. I can't tell you.
Oh, okay. All right. I will have to go back and watch. Do they have a YouTube channel or anything like that?
Absolutely. And they're in the links below in our show notes. All right, but let's introduce our amazing author of the week. Kelle, welcome to the show. This is your first time, right?
It's my first time. I'm a Spilling Ink virgin.
Woohoo!
Ooh.
Don't let Rebekah hear you say that too loudly.
That's Katie's favorite.
It's great to be here, though. Thank you so much for inviting me to be part of the show.
Absolutely. It's great to have you here. And we are talking about your latest release. Let me pull this up here. I was talking before the show about how much I adore the cover and the style of this cover.
Yes. And I love the African gray on the cover there. They are so smart. And they can be so mean if they want to be, but they're really cool birds.
I
this
actually have an African gray who is a neighbor of mine, not too far away, and my brother and I would walk up past him every day, and he would stop and talk to us. And if we didn't stop to talk to him, he would whistle at us like, "Come here, come here, come here." And so, because of that, I wanted to write an African gray into the book. For those who don't know, in every book that I have, there are some major animal characters that play pivotal parts in solving the mysteries. And so it was fun to write an African gray and give my neighbor and the parrot a proof copy of the book early on to thank them for being in it.
That's really fun. And grays, for people who don't know anything about parrots, grays are really one of the smartest birds, the widest vocabularies. They're really fascinating little creatures. They're a lot of fun to interact with, unless you get a mean one like we had at the vet's office, who absolutely hated me. We had a great relationship before I started working there. And then I think once I started wearing the scrub, she was just like, "Nope, you're on the enemy team now." And
oh no,
yeah, you don't want to be bitten by a gray. That doesn't feel very good.
How long do they live?
What's that?
How long do they live?
A long time, 40, 50 years.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
long time to hold a grudge then.
Well, yeah, and it's a lot of responsibility, and I think that. I mean, to get serious here, that's something that really you should think about before you purchase a bird, that you may be buying a bird that outlives you. And so that's definitely something you need to take into consideration. That's how the gray came to be at the vet's office. It was one of the owner's parents who passed away, and so became their bird. And so, but yeah, so parrots are a huge responsibility, and they live a really long time, sometime longer than us.
Now, you said those are the ones that have the widest vocabulary. What's the average words that they can learn?
I don't even know. I'm not sure. I mean, they can learn pretty much anything they want to, but when you're dealing with a parrot, you got to remember you're also dealing with their personality. They aren't dogs, so you don't just give them a command. It's also you're working with a very unique and sometimes stubborn personality. It's like working with Katie. They're stubborn and when
I was researching them to find out about their vocabulary, I did specific things like trying to research how quickly they could learn new words. And it turned out that every resource I found said it really depends on the bird. Some of them pick things up very quickly and others take forever. And I know several people told me, and I read from several different sources, that they will speak in someone else's voice. So
what they can do? Wow,
they can do impressions. Yes,
that is crazy. Oh my goodness!
You never met Bella, our umbrella cockatoo, either, Katie. But she was hilarious, and she loved me. Hated my kids, which is why Bella no longer lives here, because it was a bad situation. But
I remember that one.
Yeah, giant umbrella cockatoo. She used to be on the show all the time, and she had a lot of words, a lot of sounds, but some of them, like when she did her laugh, she did it in like the creepy horror villain voice, and it was really kind of scary. I mean, waking up to that kind of thing, it's not nice.
No, I can't imagine that was fun.
No, it's really not fun at all. But man, she sure was cool, and I really liked having her on the show because she was just a fun thing to talk about now and again. But yeah, well, and Rebekah had chimed in too on ages for parrots. 50-ish years. She said her friend had a one-legged gray, sweet and all, soft and a total hoot. Loved Andy Griffith too, and yelling at dogs. I mean, really, that's the dream life for a parrot right there.
All right. So speaking of animals and stories.
Yes, animals and stories. And I was supposed to tell you, somebody said, Grace says, love Kelle's necklace. And I feel like maybe there's a story behind the necklace.
Thank you. There is actually a story behind this necklace. I was visiting some friends. I used to live in the Chicago area. And so I had an avid writer community and a lot of friends there. And while I was visiting after I had moved away, I just saw this in one of the high-end stores and I fell in love with it. And I hemmed and hawed, and my friend said, well, can't you think of an excuse to do it? And I finally realized if I was writing a series called the Undercover Cat Mystery Series, and if I wore this when I was promoting it, it seemed to me to be a legitimate business expense. And so this is part of my writer's uniform. I always am able, people will compliment the necklace and I'll be able to segue and say, oh yes, and I write these mystery books and they're titled Undercover Cat and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's an opening to talk to them about the books.
That is perfect. It's genius because you get something you absolutely love and it's a business expense. So it gets
and it works. It gets the conversation started with new people.
Well, and that's why I had to buy the Harley a few years ago because, you know, for my author profile, I had to have the bad boy look for a couple of books. Yeah. So, I mean,
I believe it.
It's the same thing. IRS didn't agree with me, but you know what? You don't always win.
But you know, it's transportation too. So
well, so I really want to know about
a better accountant.
Now we haven't written off our van yet. Okay. But I did write off the branding, the wrap that put my logo on the van, and we kind of call it. It's not really a mystery mobile. It's certainly not colored like the great mystery mobile from Scooby-Doo. But since I write murder mysteries, we named her Mrs. Hudson. And we were not able to get we couldn't get the license plate that said 221B, but we were able to get Baker Street. So
that's cool.
My license is Baker Street and the name is Mrs. Hudson, and that's on the front of the van.
I love it. Well, and I'm curious, is because it's the Undercover Cat series. Is the detective a cat? I mean, is this like anthropomorphic cat, or tell me about this?
Segueing towards putting animals in stories. There we go. We came full circle.
That's a great question. Actually, in the first book, my main character adopts a cat from her murdered boss, and the cat becomes pivotal in solving the mystery of who killed the boss. Now, she also, in the course of things, she starts out as a scientist, predominantly because I'm a scientist in real life, and I wanted to see myself and somebody like me reflected in a book, so I had to create that. And then when she goes undercover, she uses her middle name, which is Catherine, and so she goes undercover as Cat Holmes. She is Dr. Watson. It was not done deliberately, but when I realized that actually was like Sherlock Holmes, I played it for all it was worth. And her cat's name is Sherlock now, and he's, of course, sure that he has solved all of the mysteries. In fact, I wrote a short story, what I put up for free on many of the digital marketplaces, that's called According to Sherlock, where he explains how he is really actively involved in these things and that he's very, very busy protecting his person against what he feels is a threat and a danger. So he has his own personal Moriarty, if you will, that he's protecting her against.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that.
Now, this sounds wonderful. I absolutely love that. Now, who are these books geared toward? What age range?
So they're adult books, mostly readers of cozy mysteries. So I would say 18 to 97 or so. If you like to read.
What if you're 98 though?
Well, nope. You might need a note from your doctor.
No.
Are you sure you're healthy enough for reading?
Well, are you healthy enough to read murder mysteries that might make you afraid of the people around you?
Well, I've got to tell you, my grandmother, who is not 98, I actually don't know how old she is. I think that she's probably around 90. I don't know. She's an old lady. She's sweet and amazing. Love grandma, but she absolutely loves the cozy mysteries. So I'm thinking that she might really, really dig one of these.
Well, she might. That would be wonderful if she jumps in the pool there.
Yeah, I'll have to send her over one. That'll be fun. She's always said. I was over at her house this morning, and she always sends me with a big paper bag full of books home every time I visit there. I'm like, where are you getting these? You don't really leave the house. You know?
Can your family adopt me? Like, the more I hear about your family, the more I just want to be in your family.
They're pretty cool sounding. Yes.
Yeah.
They are
extra cool members in my family, or extra cool members in my family. I have some, but I need more. In fact, so I jokingly in these books, I started out with the animal characters, as you know, and one of the characters, and this was based on a real life thing that happened. I worked in a corporate campus in the Chicago area. And on this corporate campus, we had Canadian geese all the time. Now, they are adorable when they're goslings, and when they grow up, they are mean.
They are.
And they were everywhere, and it got to be winter and they didn't care. And they would swim in the pond that was part of the decor of this wonderful complex where I worked. And when I started, the management had taken a plastic alligator and put it in the middle of the pond to try to scare away the geese. The story goes that it worked for a while, and then it stopped working because apparently some goose was brave enough to check it out and it didn't get eaten. And so that was not a good job anymore.
Damn it.
So eventually they hired a guy to come out with his dog and let the dog play on the grounds and chase the geese away. And so I said, this is too cool. I've got to write this into the book. And of course, I use that corporate headquarters as a setting for where I did everything to springboard off from my visual, because I'm not highly visual myself. I like to have real life models to build my visual images off of. So I had this and I ran a contest and I said, I need somebody to name the dog. And I got so many good suggestions. I had to write a litter of puppies into the book so that everybody that gave me a good suggestion could have part of the dog named after them, or, have their dog name in. And then the prize was that they got to have a character name in there. And so that's how I got some of my fun characters. But then I had to get, we called the business DOG, standing for Dog on Guard. And the DOG business went and guarded corporate campuses and made money. And so I had to have an owner for that. And I wrote a recurring character, or a pair of characters who own this quirky little place called the Barkery, which is a dog treat bakery with a grooming salon and party rooms and other things. So the Barkery always features in there, and there's always some crazy idea going on. And if I need to have my character find out more about different animals, she goes to the Barkery.
Nice.
I love that. And I'll tell you what, that's a darn good way of keeping your readers coming back too, because they find these fun little connections and they're like, oh, well, I want to see more of this. And there's more fun little connections down the road. That's just fantastic. I love that idea. Well, and you said you're a scientist in the quote unquote real world, whatever that is these days. But what kind of scientist were you?
So I'm a chemist, and I'm actually a certified chemist geek because I have a PhD.
Nice.
Which, I can use to impress people if I want, but
Dr. Kelle.
So anyway, that's what I do in my day job. And I work in the water treatment industry. So that may sound foreign to you, but just to stand on my soapbox for 30 seconds, everything that you touch or use in your daily life has a water component to it, in terms of, oh, you think that wasn't processed and cooled with water? But we use water to make everything. And so we all have water footprints as well as carbon footprints. And I like to talk about how it really impacts everything we do. So it's a fun thing.
Well, real quick though, we should explain to Katie what water is. I'm not sure that they are aware of that out in Las Vegas. Have you seen water before, Katie?
That stuff that you recycle very carefully.
I know what water is. It's just I don't know how it falls from the sky.
You've probably not seen that very often, have you?
No, almost never.
Blame it on those folks in Northern California, because they're using 80% of your state's water to water all those crops.
Oh.
Yeah, right.
Damn Californians. More reason to hate them.
Not kidding.
Joking. I don't hate Californians, but I do blame them for all traffic issues, though.
No, what do they grow up there besides pot and grapes?
They actually supply 20% of the nation's food. So,
holy cow!
Yeah, that almond milk, is a huge crop, and it's a really water-intensive crop. And I think they grow rice.
Okay.
And those are crops that are all very water-intensive. I think you should grow them like in the southeast, where they have floods all the time, so that they can help control the floods, and we can maybe grow some less water-intensive things up in Northern California. But really, just about any farmland, it's really, if you could grow it in the Midwest, you'll grow it up in Northern California as well.
Okay. No, that's pretty cool. Well, and so you said you work in the water treatment industry. Are you like what kind of role do you play? Are you finding better ways to treat water that's being recycled, or what do you do?
So I work for a company that works in the industrial sector and in large hotels and hospitalities and data centers. And what we do is make the water that they use, which is predominantly used for cooling down processes. We work to make that water more useful and to let them reuse it over and over and over again. And I actually have partnered with a couple of other people in my corporation, and we have patented a process that is going to be very helpful in removing materials that are in the water and letting it become clean enough to be reused even more. And I would tell you more, but I can't because the patent attorneys won't let me.
Okay.
Right.
That's
Mum's the word, but good things are on the way, right?
That's exciting.
Yes, and that's one reason why I keep the day job, because it really is a fun job. It's a great source of inspiration. I have a wonderful group of people that I work with. And it supplies me money to be able to come out and promote my books more effectively to the world and to get time to go out and travel to see my readers and do events. So I probably will stay in that job and the writing job for a good while yet to come.
Well, and
Let's circle back though to that. And how did you get started in writing? No, why not?
No, because I wanted to ask Kelle something before you asked her that.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Well, what I was going to ask you is, it seems like you were in a really technical job. How did you end up getting started writing?
I don't know what you're going to do with that one. It's odd. I have one of those brains, I have learned, that actually goes both ways, the technical and the creative side. Now, unfortunately, right now, my boss happens to love that about me, which is a cool thing. But honestly, I grew up reading. My mother read to me when I was a little girl. I grew up reading myself. And there were some difficult parts of my childhood where there were, normal child stresses with parents. And we won't go into that here, but suffice it to say that I began to create imaginary worlds where everything worked out right and all of the things that were supposed to happen happened. And I like to escape into those worlds. So that was the beginning. And then I got to the point where I would read a book or watch a movie. And if I didn't like the way it ended, when I went to bed that night, in my mind, I would recreate the ending. So there's an alternate ending to Romeo and Juliet because, of course, they didn't really die. This was an elaborate hoax because I liked it my way. And at some point, I realized that meant I'm probably a writer. And I always had fun writing short things. And then it was actually after I was married, my husband said, why don't you just try doing it as a profession? I wrote a fan letter to one of my favorite authors who I knew lived in the area where I lived. And she introduced me to a professional writing organization, which I became a member of. And the minute I got into a group of other writers where I was constantly around creative people, the books just started flowing.
Well, and it's funny listening to you, and I'm sure everyone else can pick this up as well. It seems like you're looking at life and you're observing life, but you're taking the fun and quirky and the best parts of everything to use in your work. And I think that's kind of cool. And I say that without having read your books. So I could have just made a very foolish statement. I mean, if your books are full of grisly violence, but it sounds like you've really taken a lot of, fun, cool stuff out of real life and use them for what you're working on.
You're kind of spot on. I like to have fun with my books. I like that to be a world where you can laugh, you can enjoy yourself. Once upon a time, many years ago, it was really, we writers, we're all super insecure and we think nobody's going to love us and people are going to hate our work. And if somebody says something bad, an internal part of us cringes and folds down. But we learn to hide that part, right? We learn to put up a front that's a little more bulletproof. So I was at one of the national writing conferences and I had an agent talk to me and she said, I think you have a talent for humor, but I think you need to push it harder because not everybody has this, but here's what you do. And as agents have said and others have said, if a writer goes too far with an emotion or humor or any topic, a good editor can always pull that writer back. But if the writer doesn't go far enough, a good editor can't make you get there. And so I started trying to work on that and hone that a little bit. and see if I could develop that as part of my voice. And that's really the root of it.
Well,
I like that
that.
because it's very true.
Yeah.
You know, when you have an editor on your team who wants to see the book succeed and is going to give you a lot of advice on what to do to fix it because you're the author, you have to be willing to take that advice and run with it.
Yeah.
And that can sometimes feel like you're being attacked because they
Yes.
are not seeing the book the way you wrote it. They're seeing it a different way. And you might be tied to the way you wrote it and not willing to move on and see the bigger vision. But if you can, the both of you together will make that book a whole lot better.
The writers out there that learn that lesson do really well. And those that think they can do everything on their own usually end up with a cobbled together project that's going to have weaker spots than those who don't. And with me now doing independent publishing, it's interesting because I don't have an editorial team from a major publisher at this point. I have to build my own editorial team. And for many, many years, I had an agent and I had to work with her, and I accepted all of her ideas because when I hire a professional, I hire them and I think I should pay attention to what they're saying because that's their job. And my job is to listen. And if I don't like it, I need to find somebody else. So finding the right editor that understands you and where you're going and yet can push you to do better and better is a trick.
Yeah.
And I love, so I've got a series of books coming out later in this year, which is going to be more romance and not so much of the mystery, although there's a slight mystery thread in those as well. And I remember at one point my editor said, no, I think this scene needs to go further. I think you need this or this. And after I went through the angst and I went through the work, I wrote a note in the comment section and I said, thank you for pushing me because you're right. It's much better now. I needed that and I love the result.
Oh, that's awesome. And you know what? That's exactly what we say to people when we're talking about getting an editor. You find an editor that you can trust and then you trust them. You know?
Finding someone you can trust is hard, and you go through wrong ones once in a while too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm looking for an editor right now because I don't have somebody I can trust. They don't know what they're doing. They're kind of unreliable. I think it's their first time editing.
Wow.
Really.
There are a lot of
Saying
people
that
that
with
think
Rebekah
they're
listening?
editors and they're proofreaders, right?
She's gonna kill you. She's not joking about that cattle prod.
Yeah, my publisher is actually here in the comments. That's Rebekah Jonesy, who says you sound hella cool.
Oh, that's sweet. Thank you, Rebekah.
Yes, Rebekah is a sweetheart, and she could be a taskmaster too. She's really taken it easy on me though, Katie. I think it's because she knows that my anxiety is so bad that I fall apart. Oh shit! She says she's coming to Michigan. That's
I told you you're in trouble.
Never mind. I'm gonna have to go, guys.
Jay, let me give you my tip. You know, everybody will talk about what do you do when you get writer's block, and I don't know that I ever get writer's block, but I get the I don't want to work thing going on in my head. And when I get the I don't want to work thing, I start shrinking my goals down and make them smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. The smallest goal to date has been go to your computer, turn it on, open up the file where the manuscript is. Open the manuscript. You've reached your goal. You can quit now. And
Get a cookie.
I have to go that small to actually get back in the track and get things done.
Yeah. Well, and all joking aside, I think that, you know, for those of us that have a lot of anxiety or sometimes run into things that are called writer's block, what some people call writer's block, you know, people who have difficulty with productivity sometimes, I think that setting small goals for yourself is really important. You know, some days getting out of bed and doing the dishes and cooking breakfast for the family is most of what I can get accomplished. You know, other days I'm really, really productive and I can get work done outside and I can get some writing done or some sewing done and it's a good day. But, you know, making sure that I'm not asking too much of myself is something that I've only recently learned to do, because otherwise I'll grind right to a halt.
And you can't beat yourself up when you are in those phases, because we all have high energy phases and low energy phases. I used to joke, and for the science geeks out there, I said my energy and my productivity is sinusoidal. I've got these peaks and I've got these valleys. And I had a boss who said, yes, and my goal is to get the amplitude to be much smaller, which means the difference between the highs and the lows to be small. But we all do have these times when I've had days when I wrote 40 pages in a day. And I've had days when I wrote two sentences and that was it. And I know that there will always be a 40-page day coming down the road if I can just get through the 2-sentence days. And I try to adjust my expectations so they're realistic. If life throws a bunch of junk at me, and I've had family health problems and issues that are non-related to either of my jobs that I've had to juggle and deal with, I expect that I keep moving forward in the other jobs, but I expect that I won't get there as fast as I would have liked under other circumstances, and that's okay.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And if we're circling back to the editor relationship, because you say it's hard to find an editor that you mesh with, it's not just answering to whatever your editor says. It's the ability to communicate with your editor and go, okay, this is your point. Let me talk you through what I was thinking. Where can we kind of figure this out together? Because an editor may not always be right either when they suggest something. They're making suggestions that they feel will help the book. But if they don't have the right vision, then it's not going to take the book in the right direction. So it's not just finding an editor that's going to push you. It's finding an editor that you're going to communicate with and that you can work together to make that book that much better.
Well, and there are different editors that prefer to work in different genres too, right?
Oh yeah.
You know, that are more comfortable in horror or in literary type stuff or in drama.
And it makes sense to pick an editor in the genres that you write in. And if an editor does say something about your work, or it means fundamentally that something about this point made them stop and stumble a little bit. So you're correct, Katie. They may not have the right solution, but they're pointing out that there's a thing that stopped me and something, and sometimes there's nothing to do. It's just something within them that stopped them. But usually there's a way you can smooth a transition or help a person get into the story a little bit better. And if you listen to yourself, and the more skill you have and the more you've worked with other writers and beta readers and different people, you will begin to understand, oh yeah, now I'm starting to see what's stopping the person, and now I have an idea of how to fix it. And then sometimes you go to your editor and say, here's what I was thinking. That's clearly not what you got. What could I do that would orient you to what I was trying to get across?
Yeah, exactly.
And sometimes they'll say, oh, now I get it. Yeah, if you change 3 words over here and add this phrase, I'll get it next time.
Yep.
Sometimes it's that easy.
And sometimes your editor too, when they're reading, because this happens to me a lot, as I'm going through a new manuscript, I'll see something and it'll make me pause. And I will comment in the notes as I'm reading that first time through. Okay, I stopped here. I don't understand this. I don't see why you're doing this. This doesn't make sense. And then 2 or 3 paragraphs down, maybe even the next chapter, there's the aha moment. And it's like, okay, now I see why you did that. But like you said, if I'm stopping because it stopped me, it made it, a point that I just didn't understand, we've got to go back and you have to smooth that out there. And so I will usually leave the comment on both sides. Here's where I stopped. Here's where I picked it up. Now you've got to figure out the transition between the two.
Well, I think that my first time ever working with a professional editor was Jessica West. And I think that Jessica has been on the show at one time a couple of years ago, but lovely person and really hard-ass editor. Yeah, Jessica knows her shit and she does not mess around. But it was intimidating for me going through it because I felt very small looking at the comments, like, oh my gosh, there's so much to do. But most of the time I just, I agreed with her because she's a pro, she knows what she's doing. So I would go through and agree with her changes. And then when I got to a couple places where I'm like, well, I don't know that I agree with this because I had a specific intention for this. And kind of like you said, Kelly, I sent her a note and I said, hey, this is why I had this. And she's like, well, that didn't really come across. We just need to change it around a little bit. And it was all good. And that's all there is to it. They're not evil creatures that want to steal your ideas and destroy your manuscript. They want to make it better, because you're paying them. Oh.
But if we can find a way to make ourselves feel miserable and small, we'll do it. We're really
Damn
good.
right we will.
You know what I've adopted lately is my method for calling out authors while I'm going through their manuscript in a nice way that makes them laugh. I use memes. I post memes in my comments just to get a little giggle to like diffuse the situation before, okay, this is what's going on. There's one of the manuscripts, the crutch is they shove every door open. Every single door is shoved open. And I found the meme of the house with the 2 windows and the door that looks like it's going. And I would mark that every so often. I'm like, what are you doing to this poor door? Just because it gets a laugh and it diffuses that you're attacking me feeling.
And actually, there are professional speakers. Then there's a technique that says when you laugh, your brain defenses sort of drop and your brain is now receptive to ideas. And so you've actually hit on exactly how to open that mind up and let people see the idea that you're getting across without feeling attacked or defensive.
And the responses are generally, they're very good. When they come back to me on their second pass, they're like, okay, I see what I did there. Or sometimes they want to steal the memes that I post in the comments because they were funny enough. But it generally goes over well. I don't get a lot of pushback at all.
It's
I'm calling out a lot of crutches at that point too. So, I worry that sometimes I feel like I'm being too nitpicky.
Well, that's your job, and that's what you get paid for. And even if we don't want to see it, like I know you don't always want to see it when someone tears apart your work, but it's part of growing as authors. And we're talking about me an awful lot, but I had therapy this week, so I guess it's all on my mind. But when you have someone who's really insecure and really anxious, it can be really difficult to work with them. And I say that being the person that's anxious and insecure and sympathizing with the people that I have to work with me, because it's like, you've got to tread kind of lightly, but at the same time, you need to get your points across. Otherwise, I can't grow and I can't learn. And I've gotten to a point in my life where I'm old enough now that I've realized that, there's more that I don't know than I do know. And so when I do receive criticism, or when I hear an argument that is better than what I have in my head, I try to accept that and learn from it. And just a couple days ago, on the other podcast, Unafraid, which Katie and I are both representing, which is awesome. Unafraid is my podcast where we talk about all sorts of LGBTQ issues. And it's a really good time. And I had a woman on that I never spoke to before, Autumn Ivy. And side note, she is my most famous, I guess you could say, so far guest. She's a famous model and cosplayer. So it was a little crazy. I was like, whoa.
Will she cosplay my major character for me?
She might if you ask her. She's also a bodybuilder. I mean, she was just like the whole package. Holy cow. But there was a couple times, and it wasn't my most on point interview ever. I felt like that whole day I'd been a little off my game. And so when we were talking, there was times where I'd say something, and as soon as it came out of my mouth, I was like, I don't think I said that quite right. And this woman, most fabulous public speaker I think that I've ever interviewed. It was amazing where she would listen to what I said, and she would kind of talk around what I had said in a way that was like teaching me. It was like teaching me something else, another way to think of it, without actually saying, this isn't right. She would explain something. It was just gorgeous. I mean, I was so happy with the way that went, because I was like, wow, that is someone who knows their shit right there. I mean, it was very, very impressive. So I kind of took this down a weird side street, but yeah.
You said something really important, Jay. And you said, as you get older, you realize there's a lot of things you don't know.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I learned, too many years ago to put a number on for this show, but I was talking to a boss and I said, I feel so stupid these days. And this person said to me, when you feel that way, that's when you're operating at the very limits of your abilities. And that's when you're the most successful. You're as successful as you can be. And then in there, I said to myself, I am going to get comfortable with feeling stupid. And the minute I let myself feel stupid, and I feel stupid a lot, I got much better at everything. Because
Wow.
it's okay. There are a lot of things I don't know, and I can be dumb about it. And I can either find out how to do it, or say in the case of books. So I don't want to find out how to format and upload because I'm stupid about it and I don't have time and I want to hire somebody. So I found somebody and hired somebody. I don't want to edit. I can't edit my own books anyway. I don't
never
want
edit
to
your
design
own.
my covers. I can't design covers. That's not within my skill set. I write. So I hire people that I like, that I trust to do these things, and then I listen to them. So
Well, and if you
that
think
is
about
my
your
life
time,
lesson.
if you think about your time being valuable, your time has worth. If you don't know how to do something, is it worth more of your time to learn it? Or is it worth more of your time to find somebody to do it so you can be productive in something you do know how to do? It's, cost benefit analysis.
I have a story about
And if
that
it
too, Katie.
creates stress for you, it's something that you should find someone you trust to do it for you.
Damn
I would
right.
rather work extra days at the day job and pay somebody to do some of the tasks associated with this that I don't want. And now,
Mhm.
Jay, I interrupted you. Back to you.
No, that's kind of my game, is where I just interrupt people. That's how I roll here. So I'm very comfortable with that. And I just gotta say, I'm thinking that, this shirt with this jacket on it makes me look a lot more slender than I actually am. I'm liking how
You're
I
working it.
look over here.
The jacket trick works
Okay.
really well. Yeah.
I like it a lot. And
Work
you're
it.
making quite an impression on our audience. Everyone seems to really like you, and I think that's awesome. Oh yeah,
Well,
my
I hope
character.
people find my website. It's under reconstruction right now. So if it's clunky, I apologize. I'm paying somebody to do this. And anyway, but
Yeah.
find my website. It's kellezriley.net and or my Facebook page or something, because I love meeting new people, and it's always fun to have new people in my reader group on Facebook or on my page and get to know them and get new ideas. So it would be wonderful to meet you and know more about all of you.
Well,
And for those
your
of you who
website
are
will.
watching now or later, look in the show notes below
Yep.
this video on YouTube, and her website is right there. So it's just a click
Yep.
away.
Yep, for sure. And my story that I wanted to tell you guys is what you were just talking about, is if it causes you stress to do, maybe it's a good, or cost benefit learning versus hiring something else. Okay, so we just got an embroidery machine. We're pretty excited about this. We're going to use it to make some cute little stuff for an Etsy shop. However, there's a lot more to it than people think. You can design things up. That's fun. I can do that. My wife can. We're both graphic artists. Katie can. I know a million people now who are amazing graphic artists. However, in order to turn it into an embroidery file, you have to do something called digitizing it, which is a pretty involved process that if you don't know what you're doing, you're very likely to screw it up. And the inexpensive software is about $1,000.
Ooh.
The really good software is about $2,000. So we're talking thousands of dollars with a very steep learning curve. And then I was thinking, well, there are these websites where people post ads for, hey, I will do this for you for money. One of them is Upwork. There's also Fiverr. So I got on there and I did some searching, and sure enough, for $5-10, someone will actually professionally digitize your files for you. And I was like, this is a great solution for me, because we want, a dozen or so images for our brand that we're going to put on different things. Hell, if I can pay somebody to do that, give them work and take stress off me, that is a freaking win-win right there. So I'm all about that cost benefit.
I have one more tip for you.
Yeah.
Because I bought a sewing machine that would do embroidery, thinking I knew what I was doing and could learn it. If you're not sure, please wear safety glasses while you're working on it, because I broke like 3 or 4 needles and none of them went into my eye. But wear safety glasses just because.
I should tell my wife there
Yeah.
upstairs that because we just got this last night and she's working on a very complicated project and I know she's probably hovering over the machine like that. But
I did something really stupid about some piece, and when I went to take a lesson at the machine shop, they showed me what stupid thing I had done, and I realized that here is yet another thing that's not in my primary skill set. So
well, there's a lot to learn when it comes to sewing or embroidery or arts and crafts of any kind or writing, and I think that getting advice from people who have made mistakes really is what helps us to grow because that's how we normally grow. If all you see is successes, you're not going to better yourself at all. But when you screw up, you definitely learn something there.
Oh yeah, and we've talked about our screw ups over the years and our learning curve. And honestly, that's how I got started with freelance. Is I didn't have the money to pay someone else to do the work. I had to learn it myself, and trial and error, and screwed up many times along the way. But I learned new ways, better ways, faster ways to do things, and now it's a skill that I can provide.
I'm actually learning to do some things that I thought I would never enjoy doing or be able to do. And there's this old Zen saying that says, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And I kind of think that that's true, because if someone had tried to teach me how to go through and figure out how to change the link for my book on my website, I would have said, no, don't want to do that. Oh, someone likes my mug. Thank you. I think it's so cool. But I learned to do it. I'm really, really proud of myself for learning to do that. And when I was ready to learn, I was able to learn.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. You have to have the mindset of wanting to learn something, or whatever you're trying to learn will go in one ear and out the other. Just literally, like the second you read it, it's gone.
Well, and you typically know when you're in that state of mind too, I think. When you're feeling just a little bit I don't know a good way. What's a good way to describe that, Katie, when you're in that mood where you're just not going to learn from anyone?
Stubborn,
Stubborn? Okay.
Overwhelmed,
obstinate.
tired,
Yeah.
middle of the whirlwind.
But I think most of us get when we're in that mood, and I think it takes a little bit of self-awareness to be able to remove yourself from that situation and say, okay,
And say, I
another
need
breath.
sleep now. I need food now. I need alone time. I need something. I'm not ready to handle this task now.
Yeah.
I can do it when I've taken care of whatever else I need to take care of.
Yep.
Well, and there are days that like right now I'm in the middle of editing a book that maybe will come out someday.
Is
someday
it the
soon,
one
and
book? Is it the
what's
one
that?
book?
Yes, the one that you offered us all your insights on. So Rebecca
Yay!
sent it over to me. She made her changes, and so I'm going through it on my iPad, reading it in the evenings and in the mornings when I'm usually the most chill, and I can just kind of process things and make a highlight and a note here and there. But I also know that I'll get to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm starting to feel overwhelmed and time to put it down for a little while. And yes, it does affect productivity, but if I've learned anything, it's my mental health has got to come first, and I can't just hard charge stuff like I used to try to. I mean, and I was so productive back in the day, and I feel like kind of a lump now. But I'm like, nope, that led you down a really dark, terrible path, and I can't go back there.
Yeah. Ebbs and flows. So what do you write, Jay?
So, oh, Katie, what do I write, Katie? What would you call it?
Jay lives in the horror, thriller, realism. I wouldn't call it urban fantasy. Paranormal. Definitely
Okay.
paranormal.
See, this is part of the problem right here, is that
Paranormal.
it doesn't have a good, clear definition. It's not easy to market.
Well, paranormal thriller is a definition, but I think it goes beyond that. Regine says psychological. Yeah, there's some psychological elements to the story we're talking about, and definitely to some of your other ones too.
Yeah.
That's one of the beautiful things about the fact that the industry has really gone over to self-publishing being a very legitimate place where a lot of highly professional people now work.
Mm.
And for years, I submitted things to different editors and agents. And when I had an agent, she submitted things to publishing houses. And I would get these wonderful rejection letters that said, we really love this, but sorry, we can't take it. And what they were saying was they don't know how to slot things that don't fit in one narrow slice necessarily. And if you blur lines, and someone said on some of these books, I got one of my favorite reviews said, it kind of blurs the line between a cozy mystery and a traditional mystery because it pushes the envelope.
I like that.
But a publisher might not know how to slot it. Of course, my favorite rejection for this series came from a smaller, well, it's not really smaller, it's a reasonable sized house. They said that they would really like it, but it had science and it wasn't merch enough. And I thought to myself, somebody on my watch just chimed in on there and I didn't need it. So I went to somebody and I said, I know science doesn't sell well because they have tried with that CSI thing for like 10 or 15 years in 6 or 7 different variations, and clearly it's not working. So it was an interesting experience. So I had to laugh at myself. And I had to laugh at the publisher for saying it wouldn't work because it works pretty well.
Well, I that's all the more selling point for me right there for your books. And I like, gosh, what was the you said it was like halfway between cozy and regular mystery?
And yes, I think traditional was the word the reviewer used.
I think that's such a good description because it tells me what kind of book this is. And I think that if more books had great descriptions like that, it'd be so much easier for readers to
so we made some conscious decisions on the first one.
I love that cover.
Yeah, I twist it and move it away from the camera. Sorry about that. Because there was a science angle and I have a scientist character and I talk a little geeky stuff in here, I didn't want to off-put any traditional cozy reader. And so we made the cover very friendly. We put the cupcake front and center and just did a lot of things to make it not seem frightening. Because if we put glass beakers and everything else, it might have turned aside a traditional cozy reader.
Well, hold that up again. I want to just kind of dissect the cover a little bit because I absolutely love the design on this.
Here we go.
I like how you've got the atom, so there's the science angle right there front and center, but you've got the cat paws going around it, which is adorable.
Cat paw electrons I love.
That is absolutely adorable. So you've got a lot of whimsy on the cover. You've got that cat front and center as part of the title. That's beautiful. Again, little elements of whimsy. The cupcake is beautiful. The layout and again, the margins of it are nice and clean. The title, the subtitle, the author name, everything is nice and easy to read. It's a very appealing, easy to understand cover.
And so I worked with Sweet and Spicy Designs for these covers, and the designer actually helped me come up with the logo. The logo went through a number of different iterations, and I'm going to give a shout out to my local writers group. We call ourselves the Crazy Buffet Club. Every year we put out an anthology of short stories, which I use to get my creative juices running again. And so it's called the Crazy Buffet. I think the first one was Crazy Buffet, and then there was Crazy Buffet Barbecue Edition. And it was named after a restaurant that we used to meet at. Mm-hmm. We have now driven 2 restaurants and 1 bookstore out of business by meeting there. We're meeting on Zoom, so if it goes out of business, you know why. But my Crazy Buffet Club, they really went through lots of iterations of this logo with me and the ideas and the brainstorming. And I even have the notes from what I originally drew for my cover concept, which was a clunky, very bizarre rendition of this. But it ended up with this clear branding. So across every book, you've got the bar of color with the cats and yada, yada, yada. So we worked pretty hard on that. And my group really came to it and helped a great deal with elements. Someone said the science doesn't come through clear enough. We added the orbitals with the cat paw. So it worked out really well in the end.
Well, I think it looks beautiful. And it speaks to me towards that cozy mystery genre, just because that is the style of cover that you see a lot of times, especially when you move towards the paranormal end of the spectrum. You see that very whimsical, cartoonish, almost like the Bewitched character. I love that style, and it's very popular.
And I love the consistency from one book to the next. It really tells people that, it really says, this is my brand. This is definitely the next book in the series. You're in the right place. You're looking at the right cover. And I think it's great. Well, and speaking of whimsical covers, I want to show you guys something, since you were showing off your whimsical cover. This is my whimsical cover for my last
I
book.
love that one.
Super
I still
whimsical.
love that one.
Very cheerful, as you can see.
But it does have gorgeous colors, and it pops.
It does. Artie Cabrera, the guy who did the cover for me, I was really, really happy with it, and it really spoke to the collection, which is more of a horror collection, and a lot of kind of doom and gloom, but yeah, having something that represents your style is so important. Hey, Katie, do you have one of your book covers you can show us? Oh, maybe the new Dissension ones, the new Chronicles of the Uprising, which are my favorite frickin' covers ever.
No, wait, hold on.
Jane's new one, though, is
all
also
right. So I've got my 3 hardbounds.
Ooh.
So we've got the
Nice.
Agents of Asset, Book 1, A Weapon of Magical Destruction.
I like it.
Book 2, Taste of Your Own Magic.
Yes.
Very cleanly branded.
Very beautiful branding. I love the branding.
And book 3, Magic in Disguise. I don't have book 4 in hardbound. That's something on my to-do list to work on. And book 5, I have figured out what was wrong with book 5. So book 5 is moving forward.
Good for you. Excellent.
Well, and there's one more part of that branding that you didn't show off there. Isn't there a part of that branding right on you?
Oh yeah, my
Your tree of life
on screen. My tree of life. That was actually the initial image that that drew me, and I wanted that to be the symbol. And the main character, this is a birthmark on the left wrist that appears when she comes into her legacy.
Oh, that sounds like a fun series. That really sounds fun. Do you all, are you familiar with the author Mary Higgins Clark?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, so I got to tell you a story. One day I was visiting my parents, and they had a small mobile home in a park down in Florida. And I was visiting them, and I was reading a Mary Higgins Clark. I fell asleep. I dreamed that someone crawled through the window and was trying to attack me. Now, instead, in my dream, in real life, I have a 3rd-degree black belt in martial arts. So you would think I would kick the snot out of somebody in my dream. I screamed so loudly the people in the trailer next door would have woken up if they'd been home.
Oh no.
Oh no.
So Jay, as much as I think your branding looks beautiful, I probably better not read your book, and certainly not when I'm alone, because it would scare the hell out of me.
Oh, I definitely wouldn't recommend it. They are very dark. They're very, very dark.
I don't like getting stuck in dark places, and it's
Yes.
easy to do. I can get sucked into some of that, so I have to.
Yeah. Well, and that's where when I wrote most of these, I'm a severely depressive person. I have major depressive disorder, and so a lot of my writing reflects that, and so a lot of this was written in a really, really dark place. And for people who enjoy horror or things that are made to mess with you mentally a little bit, I think it's good. But sometimes I know that I wouldn't want to read that kind of fiction.
And sometimes I will tell you what one of my girlfriends said. She said about me, she said, writing is like therapy for you. You are a happier person when you're doing it. And I would imagine that writing is therapy for you as well.
It is.
So sometimes she said, go back to therapy. You need to write more. So go write your book. And that was our code.
Well, I think that many of us can relate to that too, right? As writers or artists of any kind, usually when you're doing your art, you're doing the thing that makes you feel a little bit more at peace.
And once you put that fear or whatever it is you have into a tangible form, be it a book or a poem or a painting or any kind of art, then you can almost put it aside, put it on a shelf, and know that you can come back to it later and it's safe, and then you don't have to obsess about it, or at least that is how I've experienced it.
Yeah. Well, and I want to address M2Y Creations. Well, thank you, Rebekah. And all my stories are all based on, for the most part, real life situations, and that's what I like to do. I like to take real life or things that I've seen or heard and kind of twist them around a little bit. But yes, M2Y Creations. I like horror, not torture scenes, though. I have two really big triggers for me, and that is torture of innocent people, rather, and someone being wrongfully imprisoned. Both of those things are major triggers for me, both in movies, in real life documentaries, especially the real life stuff, and in books. They're difficult for me to read. And so, for the most part, you don't find those type of things in my stories. There are some graphic or horrible things now and again. But, sometimes the worst horror to me is what our own minds can do to them. There was a story where a little girl was kind of trapped by her own fears, things that didn't even exist in the outside world, but they were torturing her, and it was horrible for her. And I think that in a big way I felt like that little girl when I was writing it. I cried all through writing it, and it was just a really emotional experience for me. So M2Y, I definitely can relate. Torture scenes are very difficult if you're an empathetic person.
When you can make yourself feel what you just said you felt as you wrote, I think that means that you can make your reader feel that. And I think that's huge for a writer to be able to do.
I sure hope so. I mean, I don't want any of you guys to feel bad, but I mean, I definitely want you to feel something.
You know what my trigger is, right, Jay?
What is your triggers is being told no?
Nope. What is my number one rule?
Don't
kill the dog.
Oh, don't kill the dog.
Don't kill the dog. Yeah.
I have killed dogs, my friends, and I will tell you that I am one of the biggest animal lovers you're ever going to actually run into. But I have killed the dog in a story, and I do feel bad about it. But in my defense, that was one of the real life events that actually happened, and that's why it was in the story.
Did Rebekah show you my comments every time the dog died?
Yeah, those are always tough, though. They are. I kind of ran away with things there, Katie. I apologize. I do. I'm on this weird high after getting the embroidery machine, though. So I got to ride it until I crash, and then we'll see what happens.
Do it. When you crash, you'll be okay.
We are at the end, so we do need to pay homage to our second sponsor, who we know is in the chat room there, Miss Rebekah Jonesy. Excuse me, Mistress Rebekah. One day I'm going to say it right. Dirty Jonesy. You will be entertained, and she has some wonderful stories that she reads every Wednesday. So don't miss out. Find her on Facebook and check out her stories every Wednesday, because she reads beautifully, and she's got some really cool stories. I love her fake characters. But she is our second sponsor. She helps us produce this show. Gives us the ability to stream it to both Facebook and YouTube at the same time. So we love you, Rebekah. Thanks for being our sponsor.
She sponsors the Unafraid show too, which Unafraid show. So yeah, Rebekah is amazing. She's a wonderful ally and just a great friend to have. So thank you so much, Rebekah. We appreciate you. Even though I was talking mad shit earlier.
For those of you out there who are waiting, I saw Regine make a comment earlier. Yes, I know I skipped last week. I will be back this week with another reading from A Taste of Your Own Magic. So you have time to catch up. All of the previous readings are on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/KatieSolitis. And I will be reading 2 more chapters tomorrow at about 2 p.m. Pacific time. All right. Anybody have anything else before we take off for the week?
Kelly, anything to...
I want to thank you all for having me here. It's been a blast. I have really enjoyed this. Great getting to know you better, and so much fun getting to know some of the viewers here. It's been great. Thank you for coming. You are welcome back anytime, especially when you have some more of those wonderful stories to share with us. The minute I've got one, I'll let you know, and we'll do it. I love being here.
All right. And for those listening out there, if you are an author and would like to be on our show, please send a message to spillinginkshow@gmail.com and request some calendar dates, and we will try and get you accommodated. All right, Jay, I think that's it for us this week. We'll be back next week. We've got a really interesting author to bring on next week. So I'm excited.
Thanks
All
for
right.
joining us, everybody. Oh, hi,
What's
whoever.
going on in the
listening.
background? All right, thanks. Bye.